Hello.
Hello.
Hmm.
Hi. Okay, we will wait for some more time.
Yeah, we'll wait for a couple of minutes.
Okay. Hi all. Thanks for joining. So, formalities. Just okay. I don't know. You are ready to start the session, right?
Yep.
Okay. Let's go. Okay.
Let me share my screen then.
Okay.
Hope you guys can see my screen.
Go.
Cool. So, good evening. So, actually, I cannot see anyone here. So it's still fine. Seems like you might be having a good hectic work today, and it's here 7 p.m. in Kuala Lumpur. Not sure where that is coming from, but it's according to your time zone. It's good afternoon or good evening. Just giving a self introduction by myself. So, myself Arun. I'm basically an Indian. Started my career as software developer, went into some kind of senior roles, worked as a couple of lead developers, and finally I'm reaching into an role as architect, and I'm currently working in a company called as REA Group. We are doing some property digital businesses, and I'm working for 5 countries at the moment. So that's a bit introduction about myself. And moving towards this particular session, right? I mean, I just want to give a disclaimer here. First of all, this is not a training video or this is not a training session. It's basically just a knowledge sharing session, right? Um, for me itself, like using the Git itself, like it's been years I have been like heavily using it, but it's like you should be knowing, right? I mean, being a developer, how much we will be using, and in this current role, how much you will be involved in hands-on, right? But still, I thought of signing up into this particular session is basically with the amount of requests and understanding the opportunity, how the people out there will be getting benefited from this, right? So that's the reason just like Ginesh and myself, we thought about just hosting this session and basically just do a knowledge sharing, right? So So I just want the session to be very interactive. I just don't want people to just sitting there and just hearing what I'm just saying about it. Just want to be very interactive, and you can just feel free to stop me anywhere, like whenever you have any kind of doubts, right? And I want to run this session like very much in a very layman terms without having any kind of technical jargons or those kind of things, but very simple. Like people who are spending some time on this should really make some value out of this, right? So, so let's start about this. We are going to talk about, as the title says, it's Git 101. It's a very basic about Git. And before getting into detail, right? I mean, as I just want to stress it out again, right? Why we came up with this topic is because as I already said that we have a lot of requests about Git, right? People out there are really interested about Git and they want to know about the scope of it, right? And the second reason is that Git is something, it's not just meant for developers, or it's not just for tech people, right? Git is something that can be used by any industry itself. Like if you're talking about a company itself, it starts from HR, product manager, whoever it's, right? It's a matter of like just understanding why you're using Git, right? You just want to, if you want to handle some kind of versions of what you're doing, you want to have certain history, you can start using Git. So that's the visibility, or that is the scope of this particular topic, right? So, and that is one of the major reasons we came up with this topic itself. So it is not just going to benefit some developers or tech people, but beyond that. So having said that, I'm expecting it will be again as an interactive session. Feel free to stop me anywhere, right? So moving forward, these are the high-level topics that we are currently planning to cover. Nothing much very complex things, very simple, very basic things that we are going to cover today. So the first one is like, what is version control, right? We are hearing about version control, source control. So just what is that, right? We are just talking about that. Next is like our core, like what or why Git, right? We'll be talking about that. Sorry, someone is saying something?
Screen is not shared, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
So what are you currently seeing now?
Nothing. What about others?
Same, like get into DevOps, that home screen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, interesting. So what I was showing until now. So I'm just simply just sharing my screen on the desktop. That's what I'm doing.
Okay, let me try to stop this one.
You want to make me a co-host or something like that?
Okay, now you are a host. You can try.
Okay, what about now? Still the same?
Yep, still same.
Okay, so what to do with that? I'm just doing the normal screen share. Okay, I think now it should be working. Hang in. What about now?
Yes, now we can see.
Yeah, now okay.
Okay, cool. Interesting. Okay, never mind. So we haven't covered much, right? So again, touching with the topics, as I said, version control, that is the first one. Second one, we will be covering on the core one, like what is Git and why we are talking about Git, right? Third is a bit detailed, like what is Git workflow. And the fourth one is like the most common commands in the Git, like a entry level person, what are the commands they need to know. Next one is GitHub. So GitHub is something like a hot topic we used to hear a lot, right? So just touching a bit on GitHub, and it's a bit on what are the Git operations we used to do, and finally some very basic best practices that we are going to follow. Cool. So let's talk about version control, right? So version control is a system that records changes to a file or set of files over time so that you can recall specific version later, right? So that is the technical definition or theory definition of version control, right? Make it very simple. What is version, right? In the word itself, it means like what it's this version, right? When you're doing something, when you have a particular file, you have some kind of a document, the server to store all the version of a project. Instead, every user clones a copy of a repository and as a full history of the project on their own hard drive, right? So that's what Git does, basically, or distributed version control system does. Again, classic thing, Git helps you to track of the changes you make to your code. Git also helps you synchronize code between multiple fields. This is important, right? So we will be going into detail into this, like how do we synchronize the code?
Sorry,
Yeah.
Arun.
Yep.
Yeah. Actually, as per your opinion, which one is good, Git or SVN? So is it safe to have a code on local server instead of a centralized server?
So before, I'm not a master in this thing, first of all, right? I could just give my opinion, right?
Okay.
But
yeah, I don't have
I'm
any
just,
idea. Just
no, I'm just giving a disclaimer, right? So my 1 cent here will be like, it's better to have a local copy all the time. So having a central server is actually a single point of failure, right? So if you're having an SVN system, and if that server is going down, everything is gone. Each and every person, like 100 people are working on a project, and none of them will get any history of that project, because all the time you want to go to that central server and you want to get the details, right? But if you're having a distributed version control system, each and every person will have the copy of it. You're basically cloning it actually from the remote server. So even though that whole server went down, you're totally safe. You don't have any issue. You can actually host this thing in some other place, and even you can be the host itself. So if you're asking me, I would say that I would second on the opinion on distributed version control system. Does that answer your question?
I mean, in terms of security also. Hello.
Yeah, so definitely we are actually touching on the security side in the next slide, actually.
Okay. Okay, sure.
Cool.
Thank you.
It's a good question, actually. By the way. If there is no more questions, we'll go to the next slide. Cool. So why Git, right? Why we are just talking about Git all this time, right? So first thing is performance, right? So whenever we are taking a decision, right, like always, like in a technology world, we used to have certain criteria that comes into our mind, right? When you're having a technology choice, right? How is the operational maturity for that particular tool or the product? How is the maintenance, right? How is the reliability of the product, right? How is the performance? How is the cost involved in it, right? So there are different pillars that comes into our mind whenever we are going with the technology choice, right? So similarly for the Git, the reason people go towards Git is one is performance. So Git is very strong when you're comparing to SVN or CVN or any other tools, right? So when you're committing some code, when you're creating a branch, when you're having multiple branches working in a single repository, merging, comparing, all those things are pretty much optimized in Git. It's pretty much stable enough. So that is one of the reason it answers like why Git, right? Second is security, as we touched, right? So for Git, right, the content of the files as well as all the true relationship between the files, right? Directories, versions, tags, and commits, all these objects in the Git repositories are secured with a cryptographic secure hashing algorithm. So actually in this particular course, I'm not covering anything on setting up Git, configuring Git, or how we are going to set up the repository, right? I'm not covering that. I'm planning to have it in the 201 or the next session. But there itself, actually, you will be having a lot of security stuff that you will be setting up, like generating a token and integrating that with your remote repository and making sure that you are authenticated and authorized enough to get the details or pull the details. So that's what actually high level here it is covering with the cryptographic secure hashing algorithm of SHA. So that's how we are addressing the security part of it, actually. Third one is flexibility. It supports various kinds of non-linear development workflows, efficiency in both small and large projects, first of all, and branching and tagging as a first-class citizen. So the reason why you're saying this flexibility, right? This, like, if there are any developers in this particular call, right? There are different branching strategies. I'm not planning to talk about that. It's a very vast topic. Actually, we are covering branching in the next couple of slides. But when you're working in a very big project and you're having hundreds of developers, right? And you won't be working in a single branch, you'll be working in hundreds of branches, and you will be having a lot of merges into the development branch or the main branches, right? So those things Git can actually very powerfully handle it. And like we can simply just like in fraction of seconds, we can create multiple branches, and all those things are handled by Git. We don't need to really cover, or we don't need to be extra careful doing anything. So that's why the flexibility that we have with Git is like very good. So these are the three things that I identified, which is like very good with Git, and the reason why I am choosing with Git. Cool. So from this slide onwards, we are moving into a bit detail here. No need to worry about the sequencing diagram. It's very simple. And this is the core of the Git, right? This is actually the core. So what does this mean actually? So let's go by each pillar here, right? The working directory, staging area, local repo, or the head, and the remote repo, right? The remote repository or the master branch, right? So let's look into each term here. So working directory, right? So this working directory, the name itself says that what this, it's a directory, it's a folder that we are working on, right? Like every day we are doing some development, we are changing some files, we are changing some code, or we are changing a document. Wherever you're changing, that is a working directory, right? Next is staging area. The word itself called staging, right? You know, right? What is staging? You are preparing for something to go out. So that is what staging area means. So I will explain where is staging area coming in. And next is head or local repo, right? So this is the place that I told that you have a remote server where you're hosting everything, right? I mean, maybe GitHub, your repository is in GitHub, and you have a copy or the clone in your local machine, right? That's what we are calling as head here, or the last commit that you're pulling from the remote. That is what head. So that is also one stage here. And the final one is the remote server. That means GitHub or GitHub or Bitbucket or GitLab or whatever it is, right? Or a remote server itself. You are having your own Git server. So what is this arrow means here is that if you are changing some files in your working directory, you are changing a file, just changing a file. If you want to reach that file into that GitHub repository, you need to go through a couple of actions. And the first one is git add. Actually, this git add itself is a command. We'll be talking about that command later. So if you change a file called as abc.txt, and if you want to, the first step to bring that into remote server is you will do a git add. What does that mean is that once you execute that command, you have staged that particular file. That means you're ready to go there. The next thing is that you need to do a git commit. So when you're doing a git commit is that you're typing something like git commit -m and a message. So you need to put a message there saying that what is that change basically, right? So that is one of the best practice. You need to put some kind of a meaningful message to make understand what, like other developers should understand what you're doing basically, or other people who are working on the same file should understand it. So that's what you're doing, git commit, putting a message. Now what you have done so far is you have staged a file, you have given a message to that file saying that what is the change you have done, and now it is in your local repository. Now it is in your head. Now the next thing is that you want to do a git push. What is git push is that you're pushing this file into the remote repository. So git push is also a command. Once you did this git push, you can go to your remote repository, or you can go to github.com to your repository, and you can see that change there where you have done in your local machine. So that's it. If you want to bring a change from a local machine, these are the stages. So these stages are virtual stages in our mind. When you're very familiar with this thing, what you're doing is you're basically going into your laptop, changing what you have done in that file, doing a git add, git commit, putting a message, git push, finish. It is already in the remote repository. So now the next thing, the opposite side, how can you bring a change, or how can you get the latest copy from, or latest changes in the master branch or in the remote repository into your local machine, right? So for that, there are multiple ways. Like you can do a git fetch command, and you can do a git merge command, right? As you're asking me, I never did that. I never did a git fetch and doing git merge. The easiest ways to do that, git pull. Do a git pull. You will pull all the things from the remote repository and bring into your working directory. You have all the latest changes from the remote repository. So that is how you get the latest changes from your remote server, and the git add, git commit, git push commands will help you to bring a change from your laptop towards the remote repository. I can understand this is kind of blurred at the moment. It could be blurred. It's fine. but we will make it very clear when you are moving forward. Like we will be doing some hands-on in the GitHub. So it will be, I assume it will be pretty clear, but feel free to shoot me down if it is not clear in the somewhere around in the path. Moving into the next slide. So now we are touching some Git commands, right? I'm not expecting anyone to by heart all the commands straight away, but we are just trying to understand what it is, right? So this is a git add we were talking about, right? It's a command used to add a file that is in the working directory to the staging area. The same thing that we talked about in the sequencing diagram, right? Next one is git commit. It's a command used to add all the files that are staged into the local repository, right? Same thing that we said. Git push is a command used to add all the committed files in the local repository to the remote repository. So in the remote repository, all files and changes will be visible to anyone with access to the remote repository. So it's the same thing. You did your changes in a local machine. If you want to get that changes that you have done to your another developer or your peer, you just want to push into the remote repository. He can do a git pull and he can get your changes. That's it. Git fetch, we have already talked about it. It's a command used to get files from the remote repository to the local repository, but not into the working directory. So don't need to be confused with this remote repository and local repository. Remote repository is GitHub. Local repository is within your machine itself. There will be a cloned copy. That is local repository, the head of the repository. Git merge, it is to bring the copy from local repository to the working directory. Git pull is the combination of git fetch and git merge. It will straight away bring the changes from the remote repository directly into the working directory. It is equivalent to the git fetch and git merge. Now git clone, we haven't talked about in the sequencing diagram. So from the word itself, you can understand that. What is git clone is that it's a command of downloading existing code source from the remote repository like GitHub. So in the GitHub, you have a repository. You want to bring or you want to download the whole thing into your machine, which means that you're cloning the whole thing. So when you're doing git clone and giving the URL, you are bringing the whole code into your local machine, whole code or whatever it is, right? Whatever it is in the remote repository into your local machine. And that is now your local repository, local laptop putting in a local repository. Git status is a command that give us the necessary information about the current working directory. So this is something like, once you're very familiar, right? You always used to type git status all the time. The reason is that you want to know whether there is any staged files, what is status, if I have changed any files, those kind of things you can know with git status. We will try out this in the hands-on area in the next session. Next is git branch. Again, disclaimer, I won't be touching this very detailed because this is a very vast topic. We can bring this into the next 201 or 301 or whatever it is, right? But still giving a heads up here. Branch in Git is similar to a branch of a tree. Analogy, a tree branch is attached to the central part of the tree, which is called as trunk. While branches are generated and fall off, the trunk remains compact and is the only part by which we can see the tree is alive and standing. So when you are saying this Git, right, Git needs to be held somewhere. So it's like a tree. That's what tree is the best example, right? So tree has a trunk and all the changes that you're doing is going into the trunk. Actually, in the best practice, you are not supposed to push the things directly into the master or into the trunk, but it should be going into the branches. What does that mean is that you have the main trunk, which is the main code base. If you want to make a change by yourself, you can actually create a new branch. There is a command git branch, put the name of the branch what you want, and you can do your changes in that branch. And once that you are completed, you can merge back that branch to the master or to the main repository. It is something that I can put in a layman terms that it's to avoid making your master or the main branch buggy, or you don't want to push accidental changes into the master. It's making you like in a safer zone. All your changes are just in your branch, not yet into the master or into the main branch. So that's a high level. Branch in a Git is a way to keep developing and coding a new feature or modification to the software, still not affecting the main part of the project. That's what I just I just told, right? Same thing. Branches create another line of development in the project. So master is there or the main branch is there. When you create a new branch, it's a last commit you have from the master branch. It's coming into your branch. You can do whatever you want in that branch. And when you're merging back into the master, then you have to be careful whether you're overriding anything that is already stable or you're touching anything sensitive. All those things you need to worry when you're merging back. Until you're not merging, the branch is super safe. You can do whatever you want in that branch. It's literally a copy of the master or the main thing. The primary or default branch in Git is called as main branch, similar to a trunk of a tree. As soon as the repository creates, so does the main branch. So this is the key thing, right? This is something that should be a takeaway for you. When you create a repository, when you create a new repository, as a default, you will be having a branch. That branch is called as main branch. We will be seeing that in the GitHub as well. Why there is a strike there, master? I think until last year or starting of this year, we call it as master branch. I mean, globally, it was called as master branch. But due to this word meaning, right, master gives some kind of a resemblance to this like slavery and all those kind of things. The Git management decided to go with a name which is called as main. So hereafter, you can see the old Git repository still has the branch called as master branch. But whenever you're creating a new repository in Git, it will be called as main branch, or you can see it is called as main. So that's what, like when you're creating a repository itself, the default branch you will be getting is main branch. You can create n number of branches according to you, like based on the needs, right? Next is GitHub. Any questions so far?
Arun.
Yeah.
Hey, Arun, thanks a lot for sharing this session actually. So I think in GitHub, right? I mean, GitHub, right? It is still showing the master only. It's not changed to main.
Yeah.
I
so
think.
So that's the thing I was just mentioning now, right? I think
Yeah.
Let's straight away go into it, right?
But for me, I got it as main. This is Ravi. I got it as main. Recently, I created my repository.
Yeah. Cool. So I will try to explain that a bit, right? I'm not sure whether it's right. So this is GitHub. This is basically my GitHub repository, and these are my self projects, right? My pet projects. So if you are going to any of this particular repositories, right, you can see that the branch is master here. I think this is what you guys are saying, right? So, but if I'm going here to my old repository view, right, and if I'm going to create a new repository here, let's say, anyway, we have hands on it. Training, maybe, training Git. This is a training Git repository. And just making it public, adding a README file, adding a git ignore file, whatever it is, right? Anything I'm missing? Okay, I'm just ignoring this. I think
it's below it is showing already. This will set main.
Just exactly. So
command.
that's a point right here, right? So if you're coming here, you will see main. So from that date onwards, right, they have announced that hereafter we are not going to use master. So all the new repositories that was created after that will have a name called as main, but all the existing repositories will still have it as master.
I think somehow yesterday I created one repo, so it is showing as master. So I think I might have given the branch name specifically. I might have mentioned it. Okay. Anyhow, sorry.
Okay. Cool. It's a good point, right? I mean, maybe a glitch or something we need to think about. Maybe word to raise a bug as well in the GitHub. Cool. Interesting. So let's quickly touch over GitHub, right? I mean, people are interested about GitHub, right? The first classic thing, Git and GitHub are not same thing, right? So that is something we need to understand. So GitHub is a company founded in 2008 that makes tools which integrate with Git, and I think Git was coming around like 2005 or something. I forgot, but GitHub is around 2008. And next statement is very important, right? You do not need GitHub to use Git, but you cannot use GitHub without using Git. right? So if you don't have Git at all, then GitHub is it's nothing. There is nothing to do with GitHub. But you can still use Git without GitHub, because if you have a remote server, you can install the Git there and it will act as a Git hub itself. And you can even add GitLab on top of that, and you can have the same UI like GitHub. So that is possible. You don't really need a GitHub. But why people are going with GitHub is it is self-managed. We don't need to manage anything. So if you're having a remote server and you install Git into it, you need to manage the server. If that server goes down, you need to bring that up and you need to do the maintenance. All those things are there. But GitHub is free. Yeah.
So this GitLab, right? Is it different or?
Yeah. So GitLab is different.
GitLab.
GitLab is private. So GitLab is something that, as I said, right, you have a server, you have a VM, you have an EC2 instance. You can just go to that EC2 instance. You can go and do the Git install, the normal Git version you can install there, and you can add a GitLab on top of that. GitLab is also a software you can install on top of that actually. So it's a private, stuff. Yeah, it's a private repository.
Okay.
So now previously, right, GitLab was just like that. Now GitLab itself has a lot of powerful CI, CD, all those integration also is coming in with GitLab. I mean, just for your information.
Okay.
Cool. Thanks for that question. Again, just relating to that, there are many alternatives to GitHub, such as Bitbucket, GitLab, right? I think there are a lot of things I couldn't remember. Bitbucket is also again powerful now. Bitbucket is coming from, I think, Atlassian, if I'm not wrong. And previously, Bitbucket was also just a repository, just a Git, just similar like GitHub. But now Bitbucket is very strong in terms of having inbuilt integrated CI/CD tools, which means previously Atlassian had something like Bamboo. So now they have integrated everything into a single solution. So Bitbucket is also an option, but it's paid, I think. All of these are referred as remotes. So this is important, right? Whenever we are saying remote server, remote repository, GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket are the remotes. And all are completely optional. You do not need to use a remote to use Git, but it will make sharing your code with others easier. So if you have a GitLab, it's easier for others to share and having a visibility, right? I mean, having a UA is always easier for the people, the easier life. Okay, now it's time for the hands-on. I think we are running a bit late also, so I'm just gonna be rushing now. So what are we covering here? We'll be creating a repository. I think I have already done that unintentionally here. So actually what I did just now is basically I just created a Git repository. Just gave the name, just gave the description, and I just checked a mark saying that I want a README file. So I have a README file here and just create, that's it. It's there. So this is my repository, and my repository contains only one file, which is readme.md file. That's it. And 4 minutes ago, one commit and one branch. That's it. Next is we will clone that particular repository to my local machine. So that is second thing we are going to do. Third thing, add a file or do some changes in the file in the local machine, just doing some manipulations. Commit and push the changes to the remote repository. So that's what we are going to do now. Okay. So I already have this repository now. So I want to get this code into my local machine, right? How can I get that? So here I can see a beautiful symbol here, like a download button icon. And I can see different options here. I can go with an SSH key, adding a key. So this is what I was talking previously, right? How we can securely do it. You have the GitHub CLI. This is custom things of GitHub. They're fancy things. We are going with the simple approach. I'm just copying this particular URL. Okay, just copied it. What I'm going to do is that this is my local machine. Just using item, I'm using Mac machine, so I'm using item here. What I'm going to do is that typing a command. So I'm in my a particular folder. I just created a folder called as training. What I'm going to do is that I'm just trying to clone the repository. So here you can see I just type git clone the URL that I have copied, right? So when I'm clicking enter, it's cloned. So here, if I'm listing down, you can see a folder called as training git. So training git is the name that we have given here, right? So that's it. So training Git is my local repository. And what you're seeing here, the training Git is my remote repository. So no more confusion with remote and local, right? So now what you're going to do? We want to change something in this training Git, right? So I'm going into this particular repository. You can see this main. That means I'm in the main branch. I'm not going to create any new branch. I'm not doing any sophisticated things here. Very simple thing, right? Let me open by ID. So I have my ID open here. So I'm using Visual Studio, VS Code, is the lighter version of Visual Studio. So here I can see there is just one file, which is readme.md. So the classic thing I'm going to do is that I am putting some changes here for the demo. Okay. I have saved it. I just did a command S. That's it. That means the changes is still in the working directory. Just quickly going back to the slide. We were talking about the workflow. Yes, this one. So now I just saved. It's still in the working directory. Right? So this is the only change I did. Coming to my putty or terminal, right? Whichever fancy words looks like. So as I said, I just want to see the status. I want to know the status. What is my local repository status? Okay, git status. This is what I told, right? Okay, so it gives me information. I am on my main branch. Your branch is up to date. Changes not staged for the commit. See, so they are saying that, hey, there is a file that is changed. It is not the file that is changed. It is not staged. Okay, which means it is not staged. So I'm going to say that, okay, I need to stage that. I am planning to send this to remote, right? So in order to stage, what is the command? It's git add. So git add, I can actually type the file name, or if it is just one file, I can just put a dot. So just being very specific here. Okay, I did a git add, right? Simple git add readme. Let me do the git status again. What happens, right? Okay, again saying you are on the main branch, you are in the origin main, and now it says that changes to committed. So previously it was saying that you haven't staged it. Now it is staged. It's in a green color saying that it is staged. So now it is here. Now we want to get into the head, right? We want to get into the local repository. For that, git commit. So it's not just git commit. I want to give a message, right? I want to give a message what it is. So I'm giving a message saying that added a comment in the readme file. Fair enough. It's not a very good command. I know that, but just for the demo. Enter. Done. So it says that one file changed, 2 insertions, right? That's it. Again, just for safety purpose, I'm typing it. It says that all good on my main branch. Now we are saying that there is one commit, and it says that if you want to send it to the remote, do a git push, right? I'm just following the git here. And so again, to remind, it's in my local repo head. One thing I'm trying to say here is that actually I can just go back here, where is my code base, and I can actually start doing my rest of my work. If I don't want to send this to my remote repository, I can actually start working with the rest of the things. Previously, I'm not sure whether you guys have noticed, it was an orange color, right? Now it is saved. It is already in my local repository. It won't go anywhere. It is already in my local repository. But in order to complete that complete flow, I'm doing a git push. Before that, let's go and refresh here, right? Let's go and refresh here. Nothing is here still now. The content in the README file, you can see it straight away here. It says a training git. This is a git training git repository, which we have already given in while we were creating it, right? So here we are doing a git push. So now I'm planning to push the local changes to the remote repository. Done. It has all this blah 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 things, compression and all those things. It is done. I'm good. So git status, nothing. Your working tree is clean. So next thing is we want to come here, refresh the page. Here we go. So this is the change we have done, right? Again, one more thing in order to make it very clear, right? Next is I'm going to add a new file here. What is that? Okay, a new file, index.html. Not good in HTML, but still okay. Let me try something. I don't know whether it will autofill now. Okay, HTML. I don't know what body. Yeah, body. ID. The ID is helping me somehow. Hey, just add an HTML file here. So I just created a new file, added it here. I'm just adding in one more file. It could be about or something, right? I mean, about.js file. This time we are going with JS, right? So here I'm saying that, okay, script, simple alert. Yeah. Oh, seems like there are some issues. Oh, that's on our queue. Okay, never mind. Okay, we doesn't care about the content. We are just worried about the files, right? So we just added 2 files here into the repository. Now let's come back here and do a git status. Sorry. So here it says that, okay, you have 2 new files here. You need to add if you want to stage it, right? So I'm saying here that, okay, I'm only interested in my index.js, the index.html file. Let the about.js, let it be there. I have still some pending work to do on it. It's not complete, right? We know that it's like some kind of underlines are there. So I only want to send the index.html to my remote server. So what is the first thing? Git add, and I'm specifying the file, right? Okay, seems like I have staged it again. Git status says that, okay, one file is ready and one file is like it's still untracked. Okay, we haven't staged it. Totally fine. I'm going with git commit now. Added a index.html file. So now I have staged. After doing the git commit, it is in my local repository. Again, git status. It says that you don't have any changes here because your index.html is already in your local repository. It's not in remote server, it's in a local repository. The only change we can dictate is about.js. If you want to stage it, do it. Or if you want to keep it, just keep it. I'm fine. I'm just keeping it because I have pending work to do there. But I just want to send my index.html to my remote server. What to do? Git push. Done. So here, refreshing index.html. So similarly, I just want to show the opposite side, like how can I change, like how can I get a change that is added by someone, right? I'm not sure if someone can really go and pull this thing into a local machine, do a change, but it takes some time, right? Unless I need to collaborate that with Ganesh previously, but it's fine. But the good thing is that GitHub actually allows you to add file from here itself. So think that actually this is added by some other person in some other's machine, or never mind, you can even think that some kind of operational person or non-technical person, he want to add a file. He just comes here, create new file. Hey, it's added by the interface. Right, so he just added it. The preview looks like this. File name. What is that? sample.md. This is a commit message, right? I'm just putting this as a sample commit. Commit directly to the main branch. Yeah, I'm doing the worst thing that is not supposed to do. I'm not sure whether they will allow to do that. Whether seems like it doesn't allow. Oh, I should put file name here as well. Name your file, and I don't know why I cannot change it here. Interesting. Never tried these kind of things. Okay. Okay. Seems like they're allowing now. I just missed to add a file here. My file name here. Commit new file. Okay. So now you can see the sample.md file here, right? But if you are coming here just doing a list, you won't be able to see that file because we haven't done any pull. So what I'm going to do, I want to get the latest changes from my remote repository to my local repository. What should I do? Easiest way, git pull. Here you go. It says that, okay, you have one file that is added and the file name is sample.md. So now if you're doing a list, you can see sample.md here. Even if you're going into the IDE, you can see it here, sample.md. Any questions so far? Is it really making sense or is it something very complicated?
Arun, I have a question here.
Sure.
Regarding the, you have tried to add a file in the remote repository and then you were trying to make it available in the local repository. Will it be able to merge it using the merge command?
Exactly. Well, why can't we try out that, right? I mean, let's try out that as well. I never tried that, but we can try. Let's name it in your name. Jagat.md. Hey, this is Jagat.
I have raised a PR for demo in case you want to try.
Now that is a bigger topic. That's why I'm not going to it. It's actually like I'm actually covering that in my best practice in my next slide. But this is not the right way to do that. I mean, it's not good to directly commit anything to main. But yeah, good call out. It's my first commit. Okay. So we have that file here, right? Okay. So we want this particular file from our remote repository or from our GitHub into our local machine, right? So again, I'm just clearing the screen for better visibility. Just doing a ls, ls -l or ell or whatever it is, right? These are the only files we have now, right? So the first thing we need to do, so we can either do with git pull or we need to do with two commands, right? Git fetch plus git merge. So what is git fetch? We need to first do git fetch. Git fetch will only update your local repository. That means it will come from your remote repository from GitHub into your local repository. Let's do that. Let's try out that git fetch. So what does it say? Okay, objects, counting objects, 100%, unpacking objects, GitHub. Okay, it says that it is in your origin main. So origin main is actually your local repository, right? So here you can see that even though we did the git fetch, it's not still in our working directory. You cannot see the jagat.md file here. Even you're coming here, you cannot see the jagat.md because this is your working directory. It's not yet into the working directory. How can you get here? As Jagat said, it's git merge. Here we go. Jagat.md here. That means if you're doing an LL now, you will be able to see the jagat.md. Similarly, you can see it here as well. So that's it. So it's basically right. I mean, the git fetch is actually useful when it comes to the complex things, right? When you want to rebase. So rebase is another big topic, right? So if you want to rebase, actually you want to make your local repository up to date with the remote. Only then you should be able to rebase. So rebase is a command like if you want to do this rebase master, actually you want to have your local repository to be updated. In that cases, actually we are going with git fetch and git merge. But for your normal operations, for a normal person who is changing some files and pushing that thing, pulling that from repository, you never need to do git fetch and git merge. Git pull is more than enough. So if you're doing a git pull now, it's already up to date, nothing to do. Your remote and local and your working directory, everything is synced. All are fine. Is that making sense? Did that answer the question, Jay?
Yes, Arun, it was fine.
Arun, I have a question related to commit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So, okay, so I made some commits. I made one commit. Okay, so in that commit, I have a couple of files been modified. So you can see 3 files has been in that commit, and all of a sudden I realized that, okay, I shouldn't be putting that one in that commit, putting one particular file in that commit. So is there any way to remove a particular file in a commit?
We can do that actually. We can do that. Okay, let me try it out. So now we have 2 files. Right? Okay, let's stage it right. Let's stage the whole thing. So you are saying that you have already committed it, right? Git commit.
Yes.
Near future. So you accidentally committed everything, right? So what we can actually do here is that, I mean, there are a couple of ways. I'm not getting, I'm not sure which is the right way, but I'm gonna try it out. So we can do a git log. So what does this git log says is that it will show you all the commits you have done. So here you can see added a commit in the README file, added an index file. This is a sample commit. Added in. So this is our last commit that we have just did, right? So you're saying that you don't want to have this particular change. Actually, the easiest thing I would say is that we can go to the previous commit here, right? And if I'm not wrong, what you can do is that you can do a git revert particular commit. So here it says that whether you want to go to that previous jgets commit or not. So in that way, I think the changes that we have done is gone already.
Okay.
So now we are in the previous state. So if you're coming here, the changes that, see, these are just in orange color. That means it's in the working directory already. The changes are in the working directory, but it is not staged.
Okay. And also one more thing related to that. Suppose I made a commit, okay, and I am yet to push it, okay. So all of a sudden I realized that, okay, I want to do one more change and I want to amend to that commit. I don't want keep on committing new messages. So I just realized that I want to do modification one more file. I modified it and I want to amend that modification also in the same commit that I made.
Interesting. I think I don't have an answer for that, but I think there is an option that, like, you have already committed, let's say, okay, let's make some changes here, right? I mean, so you have added that file. So you're saying that you have already made a commit here, right?
Yes.
And you don't want to push, but you want to again comment change something here.
Yes.
But you don't want to have a new commit message.
I want to just amend it with the...
I think there is I don't have an answer. I can come back to you, but there is something like this amend kind of thing. Don't know whether they have it. See here, this thing.
Commit amend.
I think you can try it out, but I never did that.
Because because the main thing I asked you, because most of the time what will happen is that whenever we do some changes, we have a tendency to keep on committing these things, and when they push it, all the commits will come and it's totally a mess when we check the logs and all. So for small things also we are doing a commit, and later on always later time we feel like, okay, I shouldn't be putting a lot of commits. So kind of.
Okay, so actually this does it actually when you're reading it, right? But my feedback here is that actually, first of all, you will be working in a particular branch, right? You should be doing it in a branch. You won't be doing it in the main branch, first of all, right? So when you have your changes in the main branch, I mean, in your particular branch, right? Let's say you have Git branch project, for example, right? And you're doing Git checkout. I'm going a bit advanced here, but this is just for demo, right? But you are in your branch and you can do whatever you want. You can do 1,000 commits in that branch. But the only thing you want to make sure is that when you merge that particular branch into master, you just need to put only one comment there. That is just the feature. Let's say you are writing an Ansible playbook, right? And you are having a lot of commits there. But end of the day, when you merge that particular Ansible playbook to the master, you should only mention that particular, what is that Ansible used for, or that playbook used for. That is the only common message you should be seeing in the main branch. Because else in the main branch, you will be seeing thousands of messages and you won't really understand what it is. Am I making sense?
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So that should be the way. Like, so when you have 100 commits in project, actually what if I used to do is that I will do a rebase actually. Sorry, I will do a git rebase. So what git rebase does is that it will go to the latest commit of the main branch. You will get all the latest changes, and you can actually do an interactive master. So when you're doing this, actually it won't work now because you haven't done any changes. You will see all the commit messages that you have done so far, and actually you can squash all those messages and you can just leave one message, and that will be the only message you will be seeing when you're merging that your branch into the main branch. That is one of the best practice. I think this is some topics that we need to cover in the advanced sections. Cool. I think we are overrunning with 1 minute. I just want to cover the last slide, which is quickly touching on our best practices. Okay. So again, just quickly going through it. One few tips, right? So don't get pushed straight to the master, right? That's what we were just talking about. Educate, configure the commit ownership. So this is something with the Git configuration itself. So when you're configuring Git in your local machine, make sure you have your proper name there. You have your proper email address configured to that, so that whenever you're doing a commit or you're pushing something, it is easy for others to know that who pushed it, or they can easily come to you and say that, hey bro, there is some changes that is inflicting with our code. So there is some ownership there, right? Next is write descriptive and meaningful commit message. I think I have always stressed out that commit only related work. So that is again one classic example we were showing there. We will be having hundreds of files change in the working directory, but all those 100 files doesn't need to go to the remote repository. You can just select those files like git add, choose those files and only push those things so that you are not breaking anything else. So that is one good thing. Rebase your work branch frequently. So this is something advanced. I haven't covered that, but this is something that when it comes to the branch, maybe we will be talking about this in the future sessions. So that's me. That's what I have. I don't have a thank you slide. It was a very quick preparation of slides, so I don't have a Q&A or a fancy thank you slide. But that's all I got for today. Hope that made some enlightenment in you guys, and I hope that I made your time well. That's me. Feel free to reach me if you have any questions. More than happy to help you guys. I am available in LinkedIn, and you can also reach to Guinness as well.